Alright, so let's practice some more problems that look a little bit different but are the same concept. So on number 5, this time you have a parentheses that is squared, and so in order to get the x by itself, we first have to cancel out the square and do that to both sides. So here's what we're going to do on number 5. So again, we cannot get this x by itself by moving this 1 until we get rid of this square. So the way we cancel out a square is we take the square root. So we're going to take the square root, and what we do to one side we must do to both. Okay, so now we get, we cancel out the square root and the square. So the only thing we have left is this x minus 1 is equal to, and the square root of 25 is positive or negative 5. Okay, but the x is not by itself, so this one is a little bit different than what we've been doing before. Now we actually have to set up the equation with a positive 5 and with a negative 5. So it's going to be x minus 1 equals a positive 5, and x minus 1 equals a negative 5. And now we get to move the x's, or get the x's by themselves and move things around. So on the first one, we're going to add 1 to both sides, and we get x is equal to 6. So that's one of your solutions. And over here on the second one, we add 1 to both sides. The 1's cancel, bring down your x, and this time it's negative 5 plus 1, so that's going to give us negative 4. And there's your other solution. Alright, so you try number 6. It's set up exactly like number 5, so use the same exact process that you just saw on number 5. Remember, if you want to get full credit for your notes, you must at least attempt this problem. Alright, so number 7 is very similar to what we did on 5 and 6, except we have one extra step because we have this 81 sitting on the outside of the parentheses. So before we take the square root to cancel off the square, we first have to get rid of that 81. So 81 is being multiplied by the parentheses, so the opposite of multiplying is division. So divide both sides by 81. The 81s on the left side will cancel out because you have one on top and one on bottom. So you're left with 3x plus 1 squared on the left side, and 49 over 81 on the right side. Now we need to cancel out that square by taking the square root. So take the square root of both sides, and the square root and the square will cancel. So we're left with 3x plus 1 equals the square root of 49 over 81. Well, because square root of 49 and square root of 81, those are perfect squares, so now we can simplify the square root. We're going to go up here and rewrite it. So we've got 3x plus 1 equals, and the square root of 49 is 7, and the square root of 81 is 9. But remember, you took the square root, so that means we have a positive and a negative version. However, x is still not by itself, so now we have to split this into 2. We've got 3x plus 1 equals a positive 7 over 9, and then 3x plus 1 equals a negative 7 over 9. So now solve both of these for x. You're going to have to subtract 1 on both sides. Get 3x equals, and then 7x minus 1 would be negative 2 over 9. And if you're not sure how to do that in your head with the fraction, then that's exactly why you have a calculator, because you can type that into the calculator. So now get x by itself by dividing by 3 on both sides. And again, if you're not sure how to do this, type it into your calculator. So when we type negative 2/9 divided by 3 into the calculator, we get that x equals negative 2 over 27. And that is one of your solutions. Now you need to solve this one that has the negative 7/9 and see what you get for the other solution. So finish solving and I will look for this when I stamp your notes. Sometimes when we solve using square roots, we don't always get pretty numbers, and that's okay. So number 8 and 9 are examples of when we get decimals as answers, and in your instructions, it tells you to round to the nearest hundredth. That's going to be 2 decimal places. So in number 8, the square is just with the x, so we can go ahead and move the 6 away by subtracting 6 on both sides, and we get that x squared equals 8 minus 6, which is 2. In order to cancel out the square, we have to take the square root, and what we do to one side, we do to both. The square root and the square cancel. Only thing we have left is the x equals, and then the square root of 2. 2 is not a perfect square, so that's going to give us a decimal. So you would have to type this into the calculator, and when you type it into the calculator, you get the square root of 2 is 1.42. But remember, you took the square root. That means you have a positive and a negative one, so you have a plus or minus sign. All right, you try number 9 on your own, and I'll look for it when you come to class. All right, the rest of your notes we will finish in class together, so just make sure that you have attempted all the problems that you were told to attempt that had a star on it. Even if it was already started and I asked you to finish, make sure you complete that so that you can get a 100 on your notes when you come to class.